All right, so this week's deep dive is going to be a wild one. We're going exploring the world of Elon Musk,
Oh boy.
but not how you might think.
Yeah.
We're not talking about Tesla or SpaceX this
I
time.
know.
Instead, we're looking at his role at the head of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE,
Right.
and how his actions are shaking things up for federal employees.
It's definitely been a fascinating week in Washington.
Yeah.
If somewhat chaotic.
Yeah.
DOGE, by the way, is a relatively new department
Right.
established by President Trump with the goal of...
Making the government more efficient.
Exactly.
And they put Elon Musk in charge of it.
They did.
And he has brought his own style
He certainly has.
to the job, and that's been on full display lately, hasn't it?
It has.
This whole thing started with an email sent to federal workers last Saturday,
Right.
and it has caused a lot of confusion
Yeah.
and, frankly, anger.
For sure.
It came from the Office of Personnel Management, or OPM,
Hmm.
which handles a lot of the HR functions for the federal government.
Right, right.
But the email itself was...
Unusual,
Yeah.
to say the least.
Yeah, it was titled, "What Did You Do Last Week?"
Hmm.
And it asked employees to list 5 accomplishments from a previous week.
Yeah.
Now, on the surface, this might seem like a simple request for an update,
Sure.
but the lack of clarity
Yeah.
about the purpose and potential consequences of not responding
Right.
is what really set people off.
Absolutely.
What happens if you just ignore it?
Yeah.
Is it just a suggestion, or is there some kind of
Yeah,
penalty?
exactly.
It wasn't clear at all from the email.
Not at all.
And then, of course, Elon Musk jumps into the fray
Oh boy.
on X, formerly known as Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
and drops a bombshell.
What did he say?
Basically, he says that anyone who doesn't respond to the email by Monday at midnight
Oh, wow.
will be considered to have resigned.
Oh, my.
So not responding to an email is grounds for termination now? That seems a bit extreme even for Elon Musk.
It does raise some serious questions about the legality
Right.
of equating a lack of email response with resignation.
Especially with such a short deadline.
Exactly.
You see, federal employees have certain protections in place.
Yes.
And typically, resignation has to be a clear and deliberate action.
Right.
This situation is really pushing the boundaries of those norms.
It is.
Okay? But then, to make things even more confusing,
What now?
Musk follows up that initial post by saying that the email only requires a few bullet points.
Okay.
And it should take less than 5 minutes to write.
Right.
Which is it?
Right.
A fireable offense or a quick 5-minute task?
Yeah.
It's like he can't even decide how serious this is supposed to be.
The discrepancy between the email itself,
Yeah.
which was vague and lacked context,
Uh,
and Musk's public statements,
yeah.
which swung between casual and threatening,
Right.
really added to the confusion and anxiety among federal workers.
I bet.
And it also speaks to a potential disconnect
Okay.
between Doji's intentions
Yeah.
and how those intentions are being communicated
Uh-huh.
and perceived.
It definitely seems like a communication breakdown of epic proportions.
Yeah.
But it's not just the employees who are pushing back.
Right.
We've also seen strong reactions from various federal agencies, like major agencies like the Justice Department,
Right.
the FBI, the State Department, and even the Pentagon
Wow.
have instructed their employees to ignore the OPM email entirely.
So they're essentially saying that...
They're saying that OPM doesn't have the authority to dismiss employees from other agencies?
Wow. So now we have a potential power struggle brewing
Yeah.
between DOJ, OPM,
Uh-huh.
and individual agencies.
This is getting messy.
It definitely highlights the complexities of the federal government.
Right.
Typically, there's a clear hierarchy,
Uh-huh.
with the executive branch headed by the president having ultimate authority.
Okay.
However, each agency has its own internal structure and a degree of autonomy in managing its workforce.
Yeah.
This incident seems to be blurring those lines.
So you have confused and frustrated employees,
Yes.
agencies openly defying DOJ.
Right.
And in the middle of all this, we have President Trump.
Okay.
And what does he do?
What?
He goes to CPAC,
CPAC.
the Conservative Political Action Conference,
Okay.
and gives Elon Musk a glowing endorsement,
Uh-huh.
praising him for waging war on government waste.
Wow.
He even took to Truth Social,
Oh, yeah.
his preferred social media platform,
Right.
to say that he wishes Musk was even more aggressive in his approach.
It's certainly a bold move.
Yeah.
President Trump has always been a vocal critic of what he sees as bloat and inefficiency in the federal government.
Right.
Appointing Elon Musk,
Uh-huh.
known for his disruptive and fast-paced style,
Yeah.
to head DOJ was already a sign of his commitment to shaking things up.
Right.
But his recent comments suggest he's willing to push even further
Yeah.
and potentially dismantle certain aspects of the federal workforce.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's almost like He's using Musk as a battering ram
Yeah.
to reshape the federal government in his own image.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, it's not just about the waste argument, is it?
No.
I mean, let's not forget about Trump's federal buyout plan that
Yeah.
he's been touting.
Yeah.
He's claiming 75,000 federal workers have already accepted these so-called deferred resignations.
Really?
And then there's that executive order setting
Yeah.
remote work for federal employees.
Right.
It all seems connected somehow.
You've hit on a crucial point.
Yeah.
It's not just isolated incidents.
Okay.
It's starting to look like a very deliberate strategy to shrink the federal workforce
Right.
and exerts more control over how it operates.
Interesting.
Think about it.
Okay.
You incentivize people to leave through buyouts,
Right.
eliminate the option of remote work,
Uh-huh.
and then potentially fire those who don't comply with Doji's,
Yeah.
shall we say, unconventional demands.
Unconventional, yeah.
It all adds up to a much smaller and perhaps
Yeah.
more compliant federal workforce.
Wow, you're right. It is a pretty clear pattern.
Yeah.
But what are the potential consequences of all this?
What-
We're talking about potentially losing a lot of experienced and dedicated federal employees.
Right.
What does that mean for the quality and efficiency of government services?
It's a valid concern,
Yeah.
and one that many critics of the administration have raised.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real risk of creating a brain drain
Right.
in the federal workforce,
Yeah.
leaving critical agencies understaffed
Okay.
and struggling to effectively carry out their visions.
Uh-huh.
And let's not forget the potential impact on morale
Yeah.
and public trust.
I can't imagine feeling very valued as a federal employee right now.
No.
You're constantly having to justify your existence.
Yeah.
You're potentially facing termination for not responding to an email.
Uh-huh.
And you're being forced back into the office, despite, in many cases, proven remote work capabilities.
Yeah,
It all feels very demoralizing.
exactly.
Yeah.
It creates a climate of fear and uncertainty,
Right.
which is never conducive to a productive work environment.
No.
And honestly, this goes beyond just the federal government.
Really?
This incident with Doge in the email
Uh-huh.
raises some fundamental questions about the future of work in general.
Okay, now here's where things get really interesting for me.
Okay.
If the government can demand this level of control over its employees,
Mm-hmm.
what's to stop private companies from following suit?
Right.
Could we be looking at a future
Yeah.
where workers across all industries
Uh-huh.
are expected to constantly justify their value,
Yeah.
regardless of performance reviews or established procedures?
It's a valid concern.
It's a scary thought.
It is.
It feels like we're at this pivotal moment
Yeah.
where the very nature of work is being redefined.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole saga with Doge and Elon Musk and the federal workforce is right at the heart of it.
It really is.
I mean, we started this deep dive talking about an email.
Right.
And now we're talking about the future of work itself.
I know. It's
It's
crazy.
kind of mind-blowing.
It's a testament to how interconnected these issues are.
Yeah.
This isn't just about emails and deadlines. It's
Yeah.
about the fundamental relationship between employers and employees
Mm-hmm.
and what happens when that relationship is disrupted by technology,
Mm-hmm.
changing social norms,
Right.
and in this case, a very assertive administration.
So, to bring it back to our listeners,
Yes.
what do you think are the key takeaways from all this? What should people be thinking about as they process this information?
I think the most important thing is to recognize
Okay.
that this isn't just a political story
Right.
or a story about Elon Musk being Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story about power control
Okay.
and the value of human labor.
Right.
In a rapidly changing world,
Yeah.
the actions of Doge
Uh-huh.
and the responses we're seeing from federal agencies and employees
Mm-hmm.
are a microcosm of a much larger societal debate that's happening right now.
And it's a debate that we all need to be part of.
Absolutely.
This isn't just about government workers.
No, it's not.
It's about all of us who work for a living
Right.
and how we navigate this evolving landscape of work.
Exactly. Whether you're in the public sector or the private sector,
Uh-huh.
the questions raised by this situation are relevant to everyone.
Okay, so what are those questions?
Well, how do we ensure workers have a voice and agency in shaping the future of work?
Okay,
How do we prevent technology from being used to exploit or devalue human labor?
right.
How do we strike a balance between efficiency and the well-being of employees?
These are all good questions.
These are the questions we need to be grappling with.
And the fact that this is all happening in the federal government, which is often seen as a bastion of stability and job security,
Right.
makes it even more unsettling.
Yeah.
If it can happen here, where else could it happen?
Exactly.
It's like a canary in a coal mine,
Uh-huh.
warning us about the potential dangers for workers across all industry.
That's the unsettling truth of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
This incident is a wake-up call for all of us.
right.
We need to be aware of these trends and
Mm-hmm.
actively engage in conversations
Yeah.
about how to navigate them.
Yeah.
We can't afford to be passive observers
Right.
as the nature of work undergoes such a profound transformation.
We definitely need to be having those conversations.
Yeah,
But right now, the situation with Doji is still unfolding.
it is.
We have legal challenges brewing,
Mm-hmm.
the unions are gearing up for a fight,
Yeah,
and the long-term consequences for the federal government are still unclear.
it's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, it is.
And while we can't predict the future,
Right.
we can look at this situation and ask ourselves some critical questions.
Okay, like what?
Well, for example, what role should the government play in all of this?
Okay.
Should it be setting an example for ethical labor practices?
Right.
Or should it be embracing these disruptive forces in the name of streamlining its operations?
That's a big question.
It is.
There's another one that keeps popping up in my mind.
What's that?
What does all this mean for the idea of public service?
Right.
If federal employees are treated like gig workers,
Uh-huh.
constantly having to justify their existence,
Yeah.
and facing the threat of arbitrary dismissal,
Right.
what does that do to the morale and effectiveness of the government?
It's a crucial question.
Yeah.
The concept of public service has always been about more than just a job.
Yeah.
It's about a commitment to serving the public good,
Mm-hmm.
often involving personal sacrifice,
Yeah.
and a willingness to put the needs of the country above one's own.
Uh-huh.
If that sense of mission and purpose is eroded,
Right.
it could have serious consequences for the quality and integrity of government services.
And what about the unions?
Yeah,
They've been pretty vocal in their opposition to Doze's actions.
they have.
What role do you see them playing in all of this?
The unions are going to be key players in how this all shakes out.
Okay.
They represent the interests of federal employees
Right.
and have a legal obligation to protect their rights.
Mm-hmm.
They've already indicated they're prepared to challenge any unlawful terminations
Yeah.
that result from this email debacle.
Right.
And they're also likely to push back against broader attempts to dismantle the federal workforce.
So it sounds like this is just the beginning
I think so.
of a much larger battle
Yeah.
over the future of government work.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, it feels like it's a battle with implications that extend far beyond the walls of Washington.
Absolutely. This is a story that everyone should be paying attention to
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just about the federal government.
Right.
It's about the changing nature of work itself
Yeah.
and the fundamental rights of workers in the 21st century.
Well, I think it's safe to say
Yeah.
that we've given our listeners a lot to think about today.
We have.
This deep dive has taken us from a seemingly simple email
I know.
to a complex web of political maneuverable,
Mm-hmm.
legal challenges, and existential questions about the future of work.
We've certainly covered a lot of ground.
We have.
And as always, we encourage you, our listener, to continue exploring these issues.
Yeah.
Stay informed.
Mm-hmm.
Stay engaged.
Yes.
And most importantly, keep asking those tough questions.
Good advice.
The future of work depends on it.